Neil deGrasse Tyson's 25-minute takedown of Christians on Nash Kayalo's YouTube channel. Check it out. Hit the like button. We're going to enjoy this, I'm sure. Neil's always a blast. And I haven't seen this one, so let's see what happens.
I've been brought into some of that conversation just to help people understand what science is and what science is not. And so I think what's unfortunate about how that's turned is religion is becoming sort of the enemy of science, or science the enemy of religion. And that's only because religious forces are trying to put religious writings in the science classroom. Now, there's no tradition of the science professor knocking down the door of the Sunday school, telling the preacher to put science in what goes on in the Sunday school class. There's no tradition of that. There's no scientists picketing outside of churches saying, equal time for Darwin. It doesn't happen. It's not how this country was founded. So it's this needless debate going on out there when people need to know if your belief system derives from what's called inspired truths that do not come out of empirical investigation of the physical world, it has no place in the science classroom. That doesn't mean it has no place anywhere else. Put it in the religious philosophy class. Put it in the history of human thought class. But it just has no place in the science classroom. And so what concerns me now is...
That's a very powerful point.
Even if you're as brilliant as Newton, you reach a point where you start basking in the majesty of God, and then your discovery stops. It just stops. You're kind of no good anymore for advancing that frontier, waiting for somebody else to come behind you who doesn't have God on the brain and who says, that's a really cool problem, I want to solve it. They come in and solve it. But look at the time delay. This was a 100-year time delay. And the math that's in perturbation theory is like crumbs for Newton. He could have come up with that. The guy invented calculus just on a dare, practically. When someone asked him, Ike, how come planets orbit in ellipses and not some other shape? And he couldn't answer that. He goes home for 2 months, comes back, out comes integral differential calculus, because he needed that to answer that question. And so this is the kind of mind we were dealing with Newton. He could have gone there, but he didn't. He didn't. His religiosity stopped him. And so we're...
Whoa, I didn't know that. That's pretty challenging for those who want to claim, well, Sir Isaac Newton was all about God and it progressed his views and it made him more scientifically and, advanced because of his belief in God. If that's true, what he's saying, that's a big deal. That's a real big deal.
Left with the realization, of course, that intelligent design, while real in the history of science, while real in the presence of sort of philosophical drivers, is nonetheless a philosophy of ignorance. And so, regardless of what our political agenda is, all you have to say is, science is a philosophy of discovery, intelligent design is a philosophy of ignorance. That's all. I don't need to see have you discovered anything lately? If not, get out of the science classroom.
Yeah, we see this with the guy from Rice University who's been debating, like, Professor Dave and others. Like, the guy is trying to close the departments on abiogenesis and act like there's no way they could ever figure this out, and he's trying to suppress it, honestly. And that's an important problem, right, that you see, like, in modern contemporaneous issues right now.
But I'm not going to say, don't teach this, because it's real, it happened. So I don't want people to sweep it under the rug, because if you do, you're neglecting something fundamental that's going on in people's minds when they confront things they don't understand. And it happens to the greatest of the minds, as it happens to everyone else. Many, if not most other people in the public.
Don't you sometimes feel sad about breaking all these myths apart?
No, because I think it's some myths deserve to be broken apart out of respect for the human intellect. That no, when you're writhing on the ground and froth is coming out of your mouth, you're having an epileptic seizure. You have not been invaded by the devil. We got this one figured out, okay? I mean, discovery moves on. So I don't mind the power of myth and magic, but take it to the next frontier and apply it there. Don't apply it in places where we've long passed what we already know what's going on.
Do you give people who make this case that that was the beginning and that there had to be something that provoked the beginning, do you give them an A at least for trying to reconcile faith and reason?
I don't think they're reconcilable.
What do you mean?
Well, so let me say that differently. All efforts that have been invested by brilliant people of the past have failed at that exercise. They just fail. And so the track record is so poor that going forward I have essentially zero confidence, near zero confidence, that there will be fruitful things to emerge from the effort to reconcile them. So, for example, if you knew nothing about science and you read, say, the Bible, the Old Testament, which in Genesis is an account of nature. That's what that is. And I said to you, give me your description of the natural world based only on this. You would say the world was created in 6 days and that stars are just little points of light, much lesser than the sun. And in fact, they can fall out of the sky, right? Because that's what happens during the Revelation. One of the signs that the second coming is that the stars will fall out of the sky and land on earth. To even write that means you don't know what those things are. You have no concept of what the actual universe is. So
that is so damning.
Everybody who tried to make proclamations about the physical universe based on Bible passages got the wrong answer. So what happened was, when science discovers things and you want to stay religious or you want to continue to believe that the Bible is unerring, what you would do is you would say, well, let me go back to the Bible and reinterpret it. Then you'd say things like, oh, they didn't really mean that literally, they meant that figuratively. So this whole sort of reinterpretation of how figurative the poetic passages of the Bible are came after science showed that this is not how things unfolded. And so the educated religious people are perfectly fine with that. It's the fundamentalists who want to say that the Bible is the literal truth of God and want to see the Bible as a science textbook, who are knocking on the science doors of the schools trying to put that content in the science.
But do you have any sympathy for...
That's a problem, big time.
...or people who seem to only feel safe in the vastness of the universe you describe in your show if they can infer a personal God who makes it more hospitable to them, who cares for them?
In this, what we tell ourselves is a free country, which means you should have freedom of thought. I don't care what you think. I just don't. Go think whatever you want. Go ahead. Think that there's one God, 2 gods, 10 gods, or no gods. That is what it means to live in a free country. The problem arises is if you have a religious philosophy that is not based in objective realities that you then want to put in the science classroom. Then I'm going to stand there and say, no, I'm not going to allow you in the science classroom. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just telling you in the science class, you're not doing science. This is not science. Keep it out. That's when I stand up. Otherwise, go ahead. I'm not telling you how to think.
It's a live and let live kind of thing. And I get it. To be very frank, hope more people pay attention and mature in their position, even if they remain faithful. But I agree with what he just said.
I think you must realize that some people are going to go to your show at the planetarium and they're going to say, aha, those scientists have discovered God. Because God, dark matter, is what holds this universe together.
So is that a question?
Look at his face.
Question?
Is that a question?
It's a statement. You know they're going to say that.
So the history of discovery, particularly cosmic discovery, but discovery in general, scientific discovery, is one where at any given moment there's a frontier. And there tends to be an urge for people, especially religious people, to assert that across that boundary into the unknown lies the handiwork of God. This shows up a lot. Newton even said it. He had his laws of gravity and motion, and he was explaining the moon and the planet. He was there. He doesn't mention God for any of that. And then he gets to the limits of what his equations can calculate. So can't quite figure this out. Maybe God steps in and makes it right every now and then. That's where he invoked God. And Ptolemy, he bet on the wrong horse, but he was a brilliant guy. He formulated the geocentric universe with Earth in the middle. This is where we got epicycles and the machinations of the heavens. There was still a mystery to him. He looked up and uttered the following words: when I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies. These are the planets going through retrograde and back. The mysteries of the earth. When I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies, I no longer touch earth with my feet. I stand in the presence of Zeus himself and take my fill of ambrosia. What he did was he didn't invoke Zeus to account for the rock that he's standing on or the air he's breathing. It was this point of mystery, and in gets invoked God. This, over time, has been described by philosophers as the God of the gaps.
And if that is not what happens every single day, Christians that I've engaged, and I imagine others, philosophically keep pushing God to that outer limit, to that beyond accessibility and understanding. That's where God goes.
If that's where you're going to put your God in this world, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance. If that's how you're going to invoke God, if God is the mystery of the universe, these mysteries, we're tackling these mysteries one by one. If you're going to stay religious at the end of the conversation, God has to be more to you than just where science has yet to tread. So to the person who says maybe dark matter is God, if the only reason why you're saying it's because it's a mystery, then get ready to have that undone.
He's so right about that too. Like every time we discover it, God actually is this and something else we don't know. Well, explain to me this then. That's God. Oh, explain to me that. That's God,
When you talk about these things, somebody in the audience must come up, I assume, and say, we only understand 4% of this stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
So
I love it.
How is that different from Bill O'Reilly saying, well, in that case, the rest of it's God, and you guys are just expounding beliefs here. You've got no evidence for the 96%.
The difference is we do understand the tides. The tides are part of the 4% we understand. So Bill O'Reilly is giving a list of things that are fully understood. If he had given a list of things that are not understood, okay, that would be a different reaction. And it would be less susceptible to comedic mockery than saying, tides come in and out, you can't explain that. It's like, yes, we can. We've known that one for the last couple of 100 years. Give me a better example. So if he said, there's dark matter and there's dark energy forcing an expansion of the universe so fast that it's accelerating. You can't explain that. Right. We can't explain it. Okay. I don't think he knows enough physics to be able to tell us what it is we don't understand yet. That would have been a more interesting exchange with the atheist guy. I forgot his name, forgive me, but the guy who he was interviewing. Now, if he wants to use that as evidence for God, but then we just have to come back and say, well, doesn't mean if you don't understand something and the community of physicists don't understand it, that means God did it? Is that how you want to play this game? Because if it is, here's a list of the things in the past that the physicists at the time didn't understand. And a talk show you might have conducted 200 years ago would have said, the planets do retrograde? Can't understand that, must be a God. Mm-hmm. And we'd say, you're right. And then 10 years later, we understand it, so what do you do? So if that's how you want to invoke your evidence for God, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance that's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as time moves on. So just be ready for that to happen, if that's how you want to come at the problem.
Wow.
So
I
that's just
love
some-
the way he puts that. You know, I really do. He's really, really good at making them realize, like, keep going down that path. And your God is going to keep getting more and more diminished the more we falsify and figure out how these things actually work.
simply the God of the gaps argument. It's been around forever.
So, in fact, people who want to make arguments.
And by the way, wait, and I don't even mind. I don't even care if someone wants to say, you don't understand that, God did it. That doesn't even bother me. What would bother me is if you were so content in that answer that you no longer had curiosity to learn how it happened. If the day you stop looking because you're content God did it, I don't need you in the lab. You're useless on the frontier of understanding the nature of the world. And if the world had been, if I'm glad whoever those folks are, there aren't that many of them. Because if they dominated the world, we'd still be in the cave. We would have never left the cave. Because there are mysterious things out there, and no, God is doing that, and you don't need to know that, and don't even think about it. Where would we be if their understanding of the world ruled the world? So,
Wow.
I don't mind it, but just don't prevent others from conducting that investigation themselves.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so I'm, the more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might ascribe to a creator. All powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go. Okay? Not a problem.
Me too.
There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths.
But there's also enough evidence, I think, to suggest why humans constructed it. And I think that there's so many different cross disciplines you can look at that kind of help support the evidence toward the human invention or the natural construct of agencies in the image of ourselves, that it becomes a no-brainer. That even the ancient philosophers themselves, the pre-Socratics and such who saw it, who traveled the world and said, all the gods look like all the peoples, you know. If they're from Africa, they look like African gods. If they're from Europe, they look like European gods. If they're from Asia, they look like Asian gods. The point is the gods usually reflect the people. And the people like to pretend like they're the ones reflecting the gods and trying to model after the gods. But no. It's always gods are made in the image of man in all of this. And that's why it's like the probability just goes down significantly.
Collectively. Because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence. But we don't. For exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it.
So is there a God then, Neil deGrasse Tyson? Are we about to have breaking
I don't
news?
know.
Is there a God?
Okay, so what I will tell you is that there are a lot of unknowns in the universe, but just because there are unknowns does not mean there's a deity in the unknown. If you're going to assign a deity to that which...
It doesn't mean there isn't. God, Neil.
It doesn't mean there isn't, that's correct.
Peers.
You're more
But
of an
I hear
open
people
mind about this, right?
Everyone should. If the unknown is the unknown. But the track record of people saying God is behind this and they...
It's funny how I think Piers really is a believer. Like, he's not just putting on a show, you know. Sometimes I wonder if he's putting on a show. this guy does not even realize that he doesn't know for sure, but he wants to believe it. Whereas Neil's saying, I'm open-minded to any data. I'm not holding my breath that there's going to be one there based on the prior evidence that we've had and the studying that he's done. Whereas Piers just wants to hear that he's open-minded, he's ready, because Piers knows there has to be a God. It's like, that's how his mind seems to work.
You add a little science to it and you find out, no, we can completely explain it and control it. Then the history of that exercise is so rich with science discovering the unknowns that were previously ascribed to deity, like lightning bolts and weather systems. There was Poseidon, there was Zeus, there was, just look at the history of this. I'm not given reason to say, we're gonna find something, God is gonna be at the center of that, and there'll be no science to apply. I'm gonna look for the science first, because that's how the history of this exercise has unfolded.
Which is, why does religion have such a persistent hold on human thought despite all that we know of science?
Yeah, I think there are several ways one can address that question. Let me address it in a consider not long ago when so much of the Western world was, the state was the religion. And we have actually moved quite a distance from that, compared with 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, the era of the Inquisition and this sort of thing. And so to say that it has such a grip, it has a fraction of the grip that it once did on the operations of human conduct and of society. So the real question is, if implicit in that is, given what we know of science, why would religion still have any grip at all? Not why does it still have a big grip? Because it's not a big grip when you look in the developed world. So, in fact, most of Europe are just, they're whole countries where religion has essentially disappeared entirely. And the countries are not full of violence, and it's just the assumption that you have to be religious to be moral is a false one. It's empirically false, because you just look around in places where that's the case. So.
Dude, this guy's absolutely awesome. I love listening to Neil and learning from him. He's a scientist. What did you think about what he said today? I'd like to hear from you. Seriously. I really love seeing everybody in the community dropping comments, giving in their thoughts. Some of these videos I've seen before in previous reactions, but there was some new information in this particular reaction that Neil had that popped up that I haven't seen. It's always cool to get my eyes on fresh new material. Hey, suggest material in the comment section. I'm paying attention. I really enjoy these kinds of learning videos, if you will. And I'm trying not to only go for the long videos. Like, I want to do some long ones. I want to deal with some debates, some long form videos, but I also want to do some short, punchy, really funny, or even cool, very educational, videos. So please help me out by joining the community and subscribing and hitting the bell so you're notified, but also by dropping your wisdom in the comment section on what you think about the video and recommendations for me in the future. I sincerely appreciate it. Like this and share it out there to your community so that we can grow. Until next time, see you then.